Hello, welcome back to Learn Oikonomia. And today we are going to discuss the idea of J curve. What does it mean by J curve? Let's understand the concept in today's session. Let's get started. So coming to J curve, we could see that this involves a phenomena where you deal with something called trade balance. What is the role of trade balance here? As per the J curve, trade balance of a country would be worsening after depreciation. So what does it mean by depreciation? We have already discussed in some of the previous video. Again, let me explain you what is depreciation. So depreciation involves reduction in the value of a nation's currency. So whenever there is depreciation, lowering the value of a nation's currency means that will help the nation to go for increase in export and fall in import. The very same effect will be having with respect to devaluation also. Devaluation means the deliberate attempt made by the government to deal with reduction in the value of a nation's currency. So whether it is depreciation or devaluation, what happens? So this there is a fall in the value of the nation's currency. So this fall will happen. And here it says that J curve involves a phenomena where the trade balance would be worsening following the depreciation. And definitely it would improve, but before improving it worsens. So the basic idea is that as a result of depreciation, before improving, trade balance would worsen. So generally what happens is that any depreciation in the value of a nation's currency is expected to improve the overall trade balance, right? Because this would definitely, as I've told you, this would be increasing the export and also it would be reducing or discouraging the import. But before doing this, there will be something called a worsening situation. Only after worsening the scenario, it will improve the scenario. That is what is told in J curve effect. So, as we could see that whenever there is something called depreciation, or whenever there is something called devaluation, the favorable effect on trade will not happen immediately. There will not be an immediate effect. Why? There are some frictions in the economy. You have to understand that there have been many importers, many exporters in our nation. For example, we could take a situation that there would be something called binding agreements. And whenever you are in a trade agreement, there would be certain binding guidelines. And you have to stick on to these guidelines. So these kinds of binding agreements would be forcing the people involved or the parties involved to buy or sell a certain number of commodities despite the unfavorable exchange rate of currency. So this happens with force. Force happens here. It is something that happens as a result of compulsion. Even though the parties involved would like to move as per their wish in order to gain a lot, which arises as a result of the changing value of the nation's currency. This will not happen all of a sudden. So this make a time lag. So this is how the J curve looks like. You can consider time along the x-axis, and you can consider the current account balance along the y-axis, and you could see that initially you are at this particular point, and from there you first deteriorate, your situation first deteriorate till point y. Till point y you could see that from x you are moving down, so it is actually deteriorating. After, only after deteriorating for some time, and after reaching this particular point, from here onwards you could see that there is an improvement that happens. So definitely it will become positive from negative. So you can reach this point, but only after reaching this point you will reach this point. You cannot move directly from x to z. So this will not happen. You will follow a J path only. That means the parties involved will have, and the nation will follow a J path only. And this is what is told in the name of J curve. So we could say that J curve would involve a kind of economic explanation that tells us that when it comes to trade deficit, that will be worsening in the initial stage. Soon after depreciation, it will worsen. But after worsening for some time, definitely our export would increase, and definitely our import will fall, and definitely we will go for a favorable change. But it takes some time, because for some time all the export and imports, this would become something like static, and this static situation will make the economy not to improve. So in that situation you might ask why you say static, but why it is deteriorating. It is deteriorating because we have already taken some measures to have positive effect, but that positive effect has not taken place, but we have already incurred some cost in order to go for the change, but we couldn't get any positive impact, so that is why we are deteriorating. So but what happens, after some point definitely export would increase and definitely import would come down, and we will have a favorable impact, and that's why we could see that it takes a J shape. And don't ever think that this concept of J curve is just applicable to trade deficit case alone. No, it is applicable to several cases. We can apply this to something called private equity case. We can apply this to something in the arena of medicine. So medicine also involves this. Medical field also involves this, and we can apply this to politics as well. Let's see how it could be done. So I'm giving you a very short example where it could be applied to the case of private equity. If you look at something called private equity funds, what you could understand is that this initially shows something called negative returns. And after showing negative returns, soon after the launch, negative returns soon after launch, okay. What happens after some time? Then it shows gains. So it requires some gap. There is a lag to show the gains. Before showing gains, there would be negative returns. So we could see that private equity funds would incur losses initially. There would be big losses initially that would happen, because there is some cost. We have to deal with cost. That means it's a kind of expense. Again, there would be something like fees to manage the team involved. So all these things are expenses. So initially it is not giving any profit, but after some time definitely you will be able to get gains. And This gains might happen as a result of mergers. This can happen as a result of acquisitions. This can happen as a result of initial public offer or IPO. We will leverage recapitalization would also be a reason for this. Now, what happens in the case of medical side? In the field of medicine, you could see that again there is a role of Jacob. How? So this is basically seen in graphs where you will be having x and y axis. You will be having x axis as well as you will be having y axis. And here you will be measuring the treatable conditions along the x-axis such as BP or cholesterol or whatever, and along the y-axis you will be having the livelihood in the sense that the livelihood of the patient to develop a kind of disease, be it is something cardiovascular something. So he can take on x-axis something like the conditions which could be treatable, and here y-axis the livelihood, the chance, the possibility or probability for the person to develop a disease. So again that would take the form of a J. Initially it will deteriorate, then it would improve. Now again we could see more and more applications of J curve. Let's take a motor, and in this case the motor is having an oil leak. So this motor is having an oil leak. That is what we assume. So here it initially shows an increase in oil pressure because low oil level will cause increased friction as well as heat. Then what happens? A larger decrease in oil pressure as more of engine oil leaks out. Again, it will take the shape of J. So here this would appear as a reverse J actually if you plot it in the form of a chart. Now in the arena of politics also J-curve has got some application, and this is being told by a very famous person, Davis, and this person has incorporated the famous J-curve model in his own models to explain the political revolutions that will be asserting that riots are very much subjective responses to some reversal in fortunes, and this is after some long period of economic growth, and that is what he calls as relative deprivation. So what in summary we could say is that J curve is not only used in the arena of trade deficit, it has wide variety of applications. That is all about the case with J curve effect. I request you to like, share and subscribe to this channel for more videos. Thank you for watching, and also you can join our free Telegram community by clicking onto the link given in the description box. You can also download the Learn Oikonomia. For that also I'll be providing the link in the description box. That's it. Thank you for watching.